not surprisingly, freedom is a big issue in any narrative about slavery. And Cora and Caesar and Lovey are trying to escape Georgia. And of course, throughout it, we see Cora continuing to try to escape over and over and over again as she finds that she can't get away from Ridgeway. So, one of the questions this really provokes then is, well, how does this novel conceptualize freedom? And how does Cora's understanding of freedom change over the novel, or does it even change? If you've been reading carefully, you'll start to notice, first of all, that the prevalence of captivity in this novel is almost overwhelming. From the very first pages, we hear that we hear a Jerry saying, since the night she was kidnapped, she had been appraised and reappraised, each day waking up on the pan of a new scale. Know your value, and you know your place in the order. To escape the boundary of the plantation was to escape the fundamental principles of your existence. Impossible. Did you hear that? To escape the boundary of the plantation was to escape the fundamental principles of your existence. Impossible. So one of the things that we learn from the very beginning is that the idea of escape, the idea of freedom, is in the realm of things that just simply cannot happen. And this pervasiveness of slavery, this pervasiveness of captivity, sets up this struggle for figuring out, well, okay, if it's impossible, well then what does it even mean to conceptualize freedom, right? How do you conceptualize the impossible? And one of the ways that we start to get this conceptualized then is in terms of escape. And we see this running throughout the novel. In fact, if you're using an e-text and you just like check the word escape in it, you'll find it comes up over and over and over again. We're told that on page 58 that every slave thinks about it, escape, that is, in the morning and in the afternoon and in the night, dreaming of it. Every dream, a dream of escape, even when it didn't look like it. When it was a dream of new shoes, the opportunity stepped up and Lovely availed herself, heedless of the whip. Escape was something that was impossible, something that they couldn't even imagine, but when the opportunity came, you seized it. Another place we see the idea of freedom as escape is toward the end of the novel, page 257. A notion crept over her like a shadow, that this station was not the start of the line, but the terminus. Construction hadn't started beneath the house, but at the other end of the black hole, as if in the world there were no places to escape to, only places to flee. So from the beginning to the end of this novel, escape seems to be the thing that Cora is seeking. And yet it's also the thing that seems impossible for her. And in fact, not even anywhere to go to, even anywhere to escape to, only places to flee. And that brings us back again then to the plantation. Page 102, a plantation was a plantation. One might think one's misfortunes distinct, but the true horror lay in their universality. So as you can see, we're starting to develop these two really strong strains in this novel. The pervasiveness of the plantation, the pervasiveness of slavery, the impossibility of escape. And then at the same time, this strain of escape is the one thing that everyone needs, the thing that we dream of, the thing that we seek, the only way forward. And then the Underground Railroad in some ways starts to function almost as a symbol of this escape, right? Cora is able to get out of each place. But is escape the only or even the most useful way we see freedom being understood in this novel? Another big strain for the understanding of freedom in this novel is the possibility of choice or choice, right? So freedom is the ability to make a choice for oneself. We see this introduced in the very first Underground Railroad stop with Lumley. When he says that he doesn't know where the railroad goes on page 68, but in the end, the slaves' choice lay before them as ever, any place but where they had escaped. So it starts to say that escape itself is a choice, but also that the choice really lies in the slave's own power to get on the train and find out where it would take them. We also see on page 267, choice being considered in terms of not escaping, when Cora says she didn't want to run anymore. And in fact, when she's in Indiana and she's reflecting at the farm on all of the people, she says that she's surrounded by men and women who had been born in Africa or born in chains, who had freed themselves or escaped, branded, beaten, raped. Now they were here. They were free and black and stewards of their own fate. So this is another strain that we see through the novel. Freedom as choice. Freedom as the opportunity to escape. freedom as the choice to not run anymore. But whatever it is, it's to be the steward of one's own fate. And now all of that sounds really good, except there's this really troubling thing that happens at the end of the novel when you get there. As she climbs into the wagon train, she considers in the very last line, Cora considers the man she's sitting next to, and she wondered where he'd escaped from, how bad it was, and how far he'd traveled before he put it behind him. She's sitting on that wagon train getting ready to head west. Westward expansion, manifest destiny. And in some ways, it's really reminiscent of the end of Huck Finn, when Huck decides that he doesn't want to be civilized and he's going to light out for the territory. But that should mark us as readers as something that's really problematic already. It should mark for us as readers something that's really problematic already, because we've also seen freedom understood as power throughout this novel. We first see it on page 80, when Ridgway is reflecting on his father, saying that if you can keep it, it is yours. Your property, slave, or continent. The American imperative. Also, reflecting on manifest destiny on page 221. Freedom means taking what is yours, your property, whatever you deem it to be, and everyone else taking their assigned places to allow you to take it. Whether it's red men or Africans giving of themselves so that we can have what's rightfully ours. The French setting aside their territorial claims, the British and the Spanish slinking away. And on 285, and America too is a delusion, the grandest of one of all. The white race believes with all its heart that it is their right to take the land, to kill Indians, make war, enslave their brothers. This nation shouldn't exist if there is any justice in the world, for its foundations are murder, theft, and cruelty. Yet here we are. And so the problem we're left with in this book is, what is freedom? Is it just fleeing to anywhere but here? Is it the power to make your own choice? And if it is the power to make your own choice, well, what if those choices are predicated on other people's loss? And we see that throughout this novel, that other people's freedom, Ridgway's freedom, is predicated on his ability to capture slaves. Cora's freedom, is it going to be predicated on her ability to move west, onto land that belonged to indigenous people? And if so, what does that make her complicit in? As you read through this novel, keep reflecting on, how does Cora understand freedom? And in the end, is freedom anything more than the escape into one's own agency, whatever the cost? And if that's the case, is that the sort of vision of freedom that we really want?